I was sitting on the floor of my bedroom, surrounded by boxes of my dead husband's clothes, when I found the letter. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped it. The envelope was old, yellowed around the edges, tucked into the inside pocket of Thomas's favorite leather jacket, the one he wore on our first date 32 years ago. And written on the front in handwriting I didn't recognize were 3 words that made my blood run cold. For Claire, always. My name is Claire, and I'm 54 years old. My husband Thomas died 6 months ago. Heart attack. Completely sudden. One minute he was mowing the lawn on a Saturday afternoon. The next minute he was gone. Just like that. 49 years old. No warning, no goodbye, no chance to say I love you one more time. The grief was overwhelming. For months I could barely function. Our daughter Amy had to come stay with me because I forgot to eat. Forgot to shower. Just sat in Thomas's study, staring at his things and crying until I had no tears left. But eventually, slowly, I started to come back to life. Started to accept that he was gone. Started to figure out how to exist in a world without him. And part of that process was dealing with his belongings, his clothes, his books, his personal items, all the physical pieces of a life that had ended too soon. I'd been putting it off for months. Couldn't bear to touch his things. To sort through his closet and decide what to keep and what to donate, it felt too final, like erasing him completely. But Amy had gently pushed me. Mom, you don't have to get rid of everything. Just start small. Maybe pack up some of the clothes you know you won't keep. Donate them to charity. Dad would have wanted that. She was right. Thomas was always generous, always the first to help someone in need. He'd want his clothes going to people who could use them instead of sitting in a closet gathering dust. So that's what I was doing that Sunday afternoon. Going through his closet, sorting. Things into piles. Keep, donate, throw away. It was harder than I expected. Every shirt smelled like him. Every jacket brought back memories. Every pair of shoes reminded me of places we'd been together. I picked up his leather jacket, the brown one with the worn elbows. He'd had it since before we met. Wore it on our first date to a motorcycle show. I wasn't even into motorcycles, but I'd agreed to go because he was cute and I wanted to spend time with him. He'd looked so handsome in that jacket. So confident and happy. I held it to my face and breathed in. It still smelled like him somehow, like his cologne and coffee and something indefinably Thomas. I was crying again. Seemed like I was always crying these days. I was about to fold it and put it in the keep pile when I felt something in the inside pocket. Something stiff, like paper. I reached in and pulled out an envelope. Old. The kind people don't really use anymore. The paper was yellowed, the edges soft like it had been, handled many times. And on the front, written in neat feminine handwriting, were those 3 words. For Claire, always. My heart started pounding. This wasn't Thomas's handwriting. This was a woman's handwriting. Who had written a letter to me? Why had Thomas kept it hidden in his jacket pocket all these years? Why had he never given it to me? I turned the envelope over. It wasn't sealed. The flap was just tucked in, like it had been opened and closed many times. I pulled out the letter inside. 3 pages. Covered front and back in that same neat handwriting. Dated March 15th, 1993. That was a year before Thomas and I got married. We'd been engaged, planning our wedding, building our life together. What could this letter possibly say? I started reading, and with each word, my entire world began to crumble. Dear Claire, I'm writing this letter because I need you to know the truth. I don't know if you'll ever read this. Thomas said he'd give it to you when the time was right. But knowing him, he probably won't. He'll keep it hidden away like he keeps everything hidden. So maybe you're reading this years from now. Maybe after he's gone. Or maybe you'll never read it at all. But I need to write it anyway. I need to say the things I never got to say to your face. My name is Rebecca. And I was in love with your husband. I stopped reading. Couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. Rebecca. I knew that name. Thomas had mentioned her a few times over the years. His best friend from college. They'd been close, studied together, hung out all the time. But she'd moved away after graduation, gone to California for some job. He'd lost touch with her. That's what he'd always told me, lost touch. Years ago. Ancient history. But this letter was dated 1993, the year before our wedding, and she was saying she was in love with him. I forced myself to keep reading. I met Thomas freshman year of college. We had chemistry class together. He was funny and smart and kind. We became friends immediately. Best friends. We did everything together. Studied, went to parties, stayed up all night talking about life and dreams and everything that mattered. I fell in love with him, probably within the first month. But I never told him. I was too scared, too worried it would ruin our friendship. So I stayed quiet, watched him date other girls. Pretended I was fine being just his friend. And I was fine, most of the time. Because being his friend was better than not having him in my life at all. Then senior year, he met you. He was so excited. Talked about you constantly. Claire this, Claire that. I'd never seen him like that about anyone. And I knew I'd lost any chance I might have had, but I was happy for him. Really. Because he deserved to be happy. And you clearly made him happy in a way I never could. After graduation, I took a job in California, partly because it was a good opportunity, but mostly because I couldn't stay and watch him build a life with you. I needed distance. I needed to move on. So I left, moved 3,000 miles away, started over. And I did move on. Or I thought I did. But then last month, Thomas called me. Said he was in San Francisco for work. Asked if we could meet up for dinner. Catch up on old times. I said yes. Of course I said yes. I missed him. Missed our friendship. Thought enough time had passed that I could see him without it hurting. We met at this little Italian restaurant in North Beach, and the moment I saw him, all those feelings came rushing back. Like no time had passed at all. Like I was still that college girl hopelessly in love with her best friend. We talked for hours. About everything. Work, life, his upcoming wedding to you. He was so excited about marrying you. So, in love. And I was happy for him. I swear I was, but I was also dying inside. At the end of the night, we walked back to his hotel. And we stood outside in this awkward silence, not wanting to say goodbye, not wanting the night to end. And then he hugged me. Just a friendly hug, a goodbye hug. But I held on too long, and I started crying. And everything I'd kept inside for 6 years just came pouring out. I told him I loved him, that I'd always loved him, that watching him marry someone else was killing me, that I knew it was wrong and unfair and too late, but I couldn't help it. I loved him, and I needed him to know. And do you know what he did? He held me while I cried, stroked my hair, let me fall apart, and then he very gently pulled away and said, "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I love Claire. I'm going to marry her. You're my best friend, and I care about you so much, but I love her. She's my person. I'm sorry," and that was it. The kindest rejection I could have asked for, but a rejection nonetheless. I cried myself to sleep that night, cried for days, mourned the relationship I'd never had and never would have. And then I made a decision. I wrote him a letter. This letter, telling him everything, all. The feelings I'd never expressed. All the moments I'd loved him from afar. All the what-ifs and could-have-beens that I needed to get out of my system. And I told him to give it to you. To be honest with you. To tell you that his best friend had been in love with him. Because I believed you deserved to know. Deserved to know that the man you were marrying was someone other people loved too. Someone special. Someone worth loving, but also deserved to know the truth. All of it, even the hard parts. I sent him this letter along with a shorter letter for him. I told him I needed time, that I couldn't be his friend right now, that I needed to move on completely, create distance. Maybe someday we could reconnect. But not now, not while I was still in love with him. I asked him to give you this letter, to be honest with you, to start your marriage with complete transparency. And then I asked him to let me go, to not contact me, to give me the space I needed to heal. I don't know if he'll actually give you this letter. Knowing Thomas, he'll probably decide it's not necessary, that telling you would just hurt you for no reason. That the past is past, and what matters is your future together. And maybe he's right. Maybe you're better off not knowing. But I wanted to write it anyway, because you seem like a good person. Thomas talks about you like you hung the moon, and I want you to know what you have. You have a man who is loyal, who chose you even when someone else loved him, who walked away from a moment that could have gone differently, who values his commitment to you above everything else. You have someone special, Claire. Take care of him, love him well, build a beautiful life together, and maybe, just maybe, forgive him for keeping this from you, if he does keep it from you. If you're reading this years from now, know that he probably did it out of love, out of wanting to protect you, out of believing the past should stay in the past. I'm going to move on now. Try to find my own love story, my own happily ever after. And I'm going to think of Thomas sometimes. Remember our friendship fondly, and be grateful that I got to know him at all, even if I never got to have him the way I wanted. I hope you have a beautiful wedding, a beautiful marriage, a beautiful life. You're a lucky woman, and he's a lucky man. Take care, Rebecca. I sat there on my bedroom floor, surrounded by boxes of clothes, and held that letter in my shaking hands. Read it again, and again, and again. Trying to process what I was reading, trying to understand what this meant. Thomas had been in San Francisco a month before our wedding, I remembered. Some conference for work. He'd been gone 4 days. Came back tired but happy. Told me all about the conference, the people he'd met, the things he'd learned. Never mentioned seeing Rebecca, never mentioned dinner at an Italian restaurant. Never mentioned a confession of love, never mentioned any of it. He'd lied. By omission. He'd kept this secret for 31 years. Kept this letter hidden in his jacket pocket all this time, and I never knew. Never suspected. Never had any idea that his best friend from college had been in love with him, that she'd confessed, that he'd rejected her, that any of this had happened. Why? Why keep it secret? Why not tell me? Rebecca was right. It would have been hard to hear, uncomfortable, but it wasn't like he'd done anything wrong. He'd rejected her, stayed loyal to me, chosen our relationship. So why hide it? Unless there was more to the story, unless something had happened that Rebecca didn't know about, or something she didn't write about. Unless Thomas had kept this letter as a reminder of something else entirely. I felt sick. My hands were shaking. My heart was racing. I couldn't breathe properly. 6 months. Thomas had been dead for 6 months, and I'd spent that time grieving the loss of my perfect husband, my perfect marriage, my perfect life. But maybe none of it had been perfect. Maybe it had all been built on lies and secrets and things I didn't know. I needed answers, but Thomas was gone. I couldn't ask him, couldn't demand an explanation, couldn't look him in the eye and say, "What really happened in San Francisco? Did you keep this letter because you still had feelings for Rebecca? Did something happen between you two? Did our entire marriage start with a lie?" But there was someone else who might have answers. Rebecca. She was still alive, presumably. It had been 31 years, but unless something had happened to her, she was out there somewhere. She'd know the whole truth. She'd know what really happened that night in San Francisco. She could fill in the gaps, tell me the parts of the story that weren't in the letter. I grabbed my laptop, opened it with trembling hands, typed Rebecca's name into Google, added San Francisco and Thomas's college to narrow the search. And there she was. Rebecca Chen, working as a professor at Stanford University, teaching chemistry, living in Palo Alto. There was a photo, a professional headshot from the university website. She was beautiful, Asian woman, maybe 55 years old. Kind eyes, warm smile. The kind of person you'd want as a friend, or more than a friend. I stared at her photo for a long time. This woman had been in love with my husband, had confessed her feelings right before our wedding, had written me a letter I'd never received, had asked Thomas to be honest with me. And he hadn't been. He'd kept her secret, kept her letter, kept everything hidden for 3 decades. I needed to talk to her, needed to hear her voice, needed to know what really happened. Not just what was in the letter, but everything. The whole truth. Even if it destroyed me, even if it changed everything I thought I knew about my marriage, I needed to know. I found her email on the Stanford website, Professor Rebecca Chen. Office hours by appointment. Contact for course information. It was right there. Her professional email address. I could reach her, ask her, find out. But what would I say? Hi, I'm the widow of your college best friend who you were in love with 30 years ago. I just found your letter. Can you tell me what really happened? It sounded insane. She probably wouldn't even respond. Probably would think I was crazy. Or would be horrified that I'd found the letter. Or would have moved on so completely that she barely remembered Thomas. But I had to try. I had to know. So I opened a new email, stared at the blank screen, and started typing. Dear Professor Chen, my name is Claire Peterson. I don't know if you'll remember me, but you wrote me a letter in 1993. I'm married to Thomas Peterson. Was married. Thomas died 6 months ago. Heart attack. Very sudden. I'm writing to you because I just found your letter. In his jacket pocket. He never gave it to me. Kept it hidden all these years. And I need to know why. I need to know what really happened. In San Francisco. I need to know the truth. All of it, please. If you're willing to talk to me, I'd be grateful. You can email me back at this address or call me at the number below. I understand if you don't want to respond. It's been so long, and this is probably painful for you. But I'm asking anyway, because I need answers. And you're the only person who can give them to me. Sincerely, Claire. I read it over 3 times. It sounded desperate, pathetic. The grieving widow grasping at straws. But I didn't care. I clicked send before I could change my mind. Then I closed my laptop and sat there in the silence of my bedroom, surrounded by my dead husband's clothes, and waited. The response came 3 hours later. I was in the kitchen making tea when my phone buzzed with an email notification. My hands shook so badly I almost dropped the phone. I opened the email. Read it standing in my kitchen while the kettle boiled. Dear Claire, I remember you. Of course I remember you. I'm so sorry for your loss. Thomas was a good man. I'm shocked that you found the letter. Honestly, I assumed he'd thrown it away years ago. The fact that he kept it surprises me. And I can only imagine what you must be feeling right now. I'm willing to talk to you. More than willing. You deserve answers. And I'll tell you everything I know. Everything that happened. The truth, as you asked. Would you be willing to talk on the phone? I think this conversation would be better spoken than written. I'm free this evening after 7 p.m. Pacific time. That's 10 p.m. your time if you're still on the East Coast. But I understand if that's too late. We can arrange another time. Whatever works for you. Again, I'm so sorry for your loss. And I'm sorry this letter has caused you pain. That was never my intention. Rebecca. I read the email 5 times. She'd responded. She was willing to talk. She'd tell me everything. The truth. All of it. And I had to wait 8 more hours until 10 p.m. to call her. 8 hours of not knowing. 8 hours of imagining every possible scenario. 8 hours of wondering if I was about to discover that my entire marriage had been built on lies. Those 8 hours were the longest of my life. I tried to distract myself, tried to finish sorting Thomas's clothes, but I couldn't focus. Couldn't stop thinking about the letter, about Rebecca, about what she was going to tell me. I kept rereading the letter, looking for clues, hidden meanings, things I'd missed the first time. But it just said what it said. Rebecca had loved Thomas. She'd told him. He'd rejected her. He'd chosen me. That was the story according to her letter. But there had to be more. Why else would Thomas keep the letter hidden for 31 years? Why else would Rebecca sound so unsurprised that he'd never given it to me? Why else would she be so willing to talk to me now, 31 years later? There was something else. Something neither of them had said. Something I was about to find out. At 9:45 p.m., I sat down in my living room with my phone in my hand, stared at Rebecca's number on my screen. My heart was pounding. My hands were sweating. I felt like I was about to jump off a cliff. Once I made this call, there was no going back. Once I heard the truth, I couldn't unhear it. My life would change. My memories of Thomas would change. Everything would change. But I had to know. So at exactly 10 p.m., I dialed the number. It rang twice. Then a woman answered. Hello? Her voice was soft, kind, nervous. I could hear her breathing, could feel her tension through the phone. She was as scared of this conversation as I was. Rebecca? This is Claire. Claire. Hi, thank you for calling. I've been thinking about you all day, about what I should say, how to explain. Just tell me the truth. That's all I want. The truth. She took a deep breath. Okay. The truth. All of it. Where do you want me to start? The night in San Francisco. You had dinner with Thomas. You told him you loved him. He rejected you. Is that accurate? Yes, that's accurate. And then you wrote the letter. Asked him to give it to me. Asked him to be honest. Yes, but he didn't give it to me. He kept it. Why? Another deep breath. Longer this time. Because I asked him not to. I felt like I'd been punched. What? In my letter to him. The one I wrote for him, not for you. I asked him not to give you the letter I'd written for you. I changed my mind. I told him to throw it away. To forget about it. To forget about me and our conversation and everything that happened. I told him you didn't need to know. That it would only hurt you. That the past should stay in the past. Then why did you write it at all? Because I was hurt and angry. And I wanted him to feel guilty. I wanted him to know that keeping secrets from you was wrong. But then after I sent it, I realized I was being selfish. I was trying to ease my own guilt by transferring it to him. And that wasn't fair. So I wrote him another letter, asked him to forget the first one, to keep it secret, to protect you from unnecessary pain. He kept both letters? I don't know. I assumed he threw them both away. That's what I told him to do, but apparently he kept at least one. Why would he do that? I don't know, Claire. I honestly don't know. Maybe as a reminder. Maybe because he felt guilty. Maybe because he wanted to remember that moment, that choice. I can't tell you why he did what he did. I can only tell you what I asked him to do. I felt tears on my face. Didn't remember starting to cry. Did something happen between you two that night? Something you didn't write in the letter? Silence. Long, heavy silence. Then quietly, yes, my heart stopped. What happened? After I told him I loved him, after he rejected me, after he said he was going to marry you. We stood there outside his hotel, and I was crying, and he was holding me. And then I kissed him. Just once, just for a moment, and he kissed me back. For maybe 3 seconds. And then he pulled away and said he was sorry, that he shouldn't have done that he loved you, that he was going to marry you. And he went inside his hotel, and I never saw him again. That's what happened, Claire. We kissed. For 3 seconds. 31 years ago. And then we never spoke again. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Thomas had kissed Rebecca, the night before our wedding dress fitting. The week I'd been finalizing seating charts and choosing flowers and being so excited to marry him. He'd been in San Francisco kissing another woman, his best friend who loved him. And he'd never told me, never confessed, never gave me the choice to forgive him or walk away. He'd just kept it secret. For 31 years, until he died. And even then, only because I'd found the letter by accident. Claire? Are you still there? I'm here. I'm so sorry. I know this is hard to hear. But you asked for the truth. Did you love him the whole time? All those years? Even after you stopped talking? No, I moved on. Eventually. It took a few years. But I met someone else, got married, had kids, built a life. I thought about Thomas sometimes, wondered how he was, but I didn't love him anymore. The person I loved was the Thomas from college, the Thomas I knew, not the Thomas he became, not your husband. Does that make sense? I guess. For what it's worth, he called me once, about 10 years ago, left a voicemail, said he wanted to apologize, to explain, to make sure I was okay. I never called him back. I was married, happy, didn't want to reopen old wounds. So I deleted the voicemail and moved on. That was the last contact I had with him. He called you 10 years ago? Why? I don't know. He didn't say. Just said he'd been thinking about that night in San Francisco. About how it ended, about the letter, about everything, and he wanted to make sure I was okay. 10 years ago, that was the year we'd almost gotten divorced. The year Thomas and I had gone through the worst rough patch of our marriage. He'd been distant, depressed, questioning everything. We'd gone to counseling, worked through it, came out stronger. Or so I'd thought. But maybe he'd been thinking about Rebecca, about that kiss, about the road not taken, about what his life might have been like if he'd made different choices. Claire, I need you to understand something. What happened between Thomas and me was a mistake, a moment of weakness. 3 seconds that never should have happened. But it didn't mean anything. Not really. He loved you. He chose you. He built a life with you. That kiss didn't change any of that. But he kept the letter. For 31 years. That has to mean something. Maybe. Or maybe he just forgot about it. Maybe it got stuck in his jacket pocket and he never thought about it again. You said he wore that jacket on your first date. Maybe that's why he kept it. The jacket, I mean, not the letter. Maybe the letter was just along for the ride. Or maybe he kept it because he regretted his choice. Maybe he kept it because he wished he'd chosen you instead of me. He didn't wish that, Claire. Trust me. If he'd wanted to be with me, he would have been. He had opportunities. He called me 10 years ago. He could have said, I made a mistake. I should have chosen you. Let's run away together. But he didn't. He called to apologize, to make sure I was okay. Because he was a good man who felt guilty about a 3-second kiss from 31 years ago. That's who he was. Someone who cared. Someone who felt things deeply. Someone who carried guilt even when he shouldn't have. I don't know what to think anymore. I don't know what was real and what was a lie. I thought I knew my husband. Thought I knew our marriage. But now I feel like I don't know anything. Your marriage was real. Your husband loved you. I know this because I saw how he talked about you. How his eyes lit up when he said your name. How excited he was to marry you. That was real, Claire, all of it. Don't let a 3-second mistake from 31 years ago take that away from you. We talked for another hour. Rebecca told me about her life, her marriage, her kids, her career. How she'd moved on from Thomas and built something beautiful. How she was happy now. How that night in San Francisco was ancient history that didn't matter anymore, except as a lesson learned. A reminder that sometimes the person you think you want isn't the person you need. And sometimes rejection is the biggest blessing because it pushes you toward your actual destiny. She was kind, patient, answered every question I asked, never got defensive or angry, just told me the truth as gently as she could. And by the end of the conversation, I believed her. I believed that the kiss had been a mistake, that Thomas had loved me, that our marriage had been real. But I was still hurt, still angry, still grieving something I couldn't quite name. The loss of innocence, maybe. The death of the perfect story I'd been telling myself about our relationship. "Thank you for talking to me," I said finally. "I know this wasn't easy for you. Thank you for reaching out, for giving me a chance to explain, to apologize, even though it's 31 years too late." Do you think he kept the letter on purpose, or was it really just forgotten? I don't know. But Claire? Does it matter? He's gone. You can't ask him. You'll never know for sure. So maybe it's better to choose what to believe. Choose to believe he kept it because he valued our friendship. Or because the jacket meant something to him from your first date. Or because it got stuck in the pocket and he genuinely forgot. Choose the story that lets you heal. That lets you remember him with love instead of anger. That's my advice. Choose the story that helps you move forward. We said goodbye, hung up, and I sat in my living room in the silence of my empty house and thought about what Rebecca had said. Choose the story. Choose what to believe. Choose to heal. But how do you choose when you don't know the truth? How do you decide what to believe when the only person who knew for sure is dead? I went to bed that night but couldn't sleep. Just lay there staring at the ceiling thinking about Thomas, about our marriage, about the life we'd built together, trying to reconcile the man I'd loved for 31 years with the man who'd kissed another woman and kept it secret, trying to figure out if I could forgive him, if I could move past this, if I could still love the memory of him knowing what I now knew. The next morning I called Amy, told her I needed to talk. She came over immediately, found me sitting at the kitchen table with the letter spread out in front of me, red-eyed and exhausted from not sleeping. "Mom, what's wrong? You look terrible." "I found something. In your father's jacket." I handed her the letter, watched her face as she read. Watched shock and confusion and anger and sadness cross her features. When she finished, she looked up at me with tears in her eyes. "Dad kissed another woman? Right before our wedding, according to Rebecca. 3 seconds. Then never again. And he never told you?" "Never. That's so messed up, Mom. I can't believe he'd keep that from you." I talked to Rebecca last night. She said it was a mistake, that it didn't mean anything, that your father loved me and chose me and our marriage was real. But he still lied. By omission, yes. How do you feel about that? I thought about it. How did I feel? Betrayed, angry, hurt, confused, but also understanding. Because I knew Thomas, knew how he thought, how he processed things. He'd probably convinced himself that telling me would only hurt me, that the kiss was meaningless, that confessing would damage our marriage for no good reason. So he'd kept it secret, carried the guilt alone, tried to protect me from pain. Even though in doing so, he'd taken away my choice, my right to know, my ability to decide whether to forgive him or walk away. "I feel like I lost him twice," I said finally. "Once when he died, and again when I found this letter. The first time I lost my husband. The second time I lost my perfect memory of him. And I don't know which hurts more." Amy came around the table and hugged me, held me while I cried. Again, always crying these days. "What are you going to do?" "I don't know." Rebecca said I should choose what to believe. Choose the story that helps me heal, but I don't know how to do that. Maybe you don't have to choose right now. Maybe you just need time, more time to process, to grieve, to figure out what this means to you. Or maybe I need to find out if there were other secrets, other things he kept from me. Maybe this letter is just the beginning. Amy pulled back and looked at me seriously. Mom, do you really want to go down that road? Do you really? You want to dig through Dad's entire life, looking for secrets? Because once you start, you can't stop. And you might find things that hurt you even more. Things you wish you never knew. But what if he was lying to me our entire marriage? What if everything I thought was real was actually built on secrets and half-truths? Or, what if this was the only secret? One mistake, one kiss, one hidden letter. And everything else was exactly what you thought it was. A loving marriage between two people who chose each other every single day for 31 years. How can I know which is true? You can't. Not for sure. But Mom, I grew up in this house. I saw you and Dad together every day, and I can tell you what I saw. I saw two people who loved each other, who laughed together, who held hands, who kissed goodbye every morning, who supported each other through everything, who raised me together, who built a beautiful life together. That's what I saw. That was real. I know it was. But he kept the letter. Yeah, he did. And that sucks. But maybe he kept it for a reason that had nothing to do with Rebecca. Maybe he kept it because it reminded him of how lucky he was to have you, how close he came to screwing up, how grateful he was that you said yes to marrying him. Maybe the letter was a reminder of the best choice he ever made, not a reminder of regret. I wanted to believe that. Wanted to believe Amy's interpretation, that Thomas had kept the letter as a reminder of how much he loved me. Not as evidence of regret or doubt or secret desires, but I couldn't know for sure. Would never know for sure. And that uncertainty was eating me alive. Over the next few weeks, I did start looking through Thomas's things more carefully, not obsessively, not like a detective, but paying attention, looking for patterns, signs, other secrets he might have kept. I went through his study, his computer, his phone records from the past few years, his email, looking for anything suspicious. Any evidence of other lies or hidden relationships or secret parts of his life I didn't know about. And I found nothing. His emails were boring. Work stuff. Fantasy football leagues with his buddies. Emails to me about what to have for dinner. His phone records showed calls to me, to Amy, to his brother, to work colleagues. Nothing unusual. His computer history was embarrassingly normal. News sites, sports sites, online shopping, no dating sites, no secret email accounts, no hidden folders of anything inappropriate. Either he'd been very careful to cover his tracks, or there was nothing to find. And the more I looked, the more I started to believe it was the latter. That the kiss with Rebecca really had been the only secret. One mistake, one moment of weakness, one thing he'd kept from me in 31 years of marriage. Was that forgivable? Should I be angry? Or should I be grateful that he'd been faithful otherwise? That he'd chosen me and stuck with that choice every single day for 3 decades? I didn't know. So I did what people do when they don't know what to think. I went to therapy, found a grief counselor who specialized in complicated mourning, told her about the letter, about the kiss, about my confusion and anger and hurt, about not knowing whether to forgive Thomas or hate him, about feeling like I was betraying his memory by being angry, but also betraying myself by not being angry enough. The therapist, a kind woman named Dr. Roberts, listened to everything. Then, she asked me a question that changed everything. Claire, if Thomas were still alive, if he'd told you about this kiss right after it happened, 31 years ago, what would you have done? I thought about it, really thought about it. If Thomas had come home from San Francisco and said, I need to tell you something. I saw Rebecca. She told me she loved me. We kissed for 3 seconds. I'm sorry. It was a mistake. I love you. What would I have done? I would have been upset, I said slowly. Really upset, hurt, angry. But I think I would have forgiven him, because it was 3 seconds, and he told me, and he was honest. And he chose me. I think I would have forgiven him. So the kiss itself isn't unforgivable? No. I mean, it would have hurt. But people make mistakes. Especially when emotions are high and someone's confessing their love. 3 seconds of weakness doesn't erase everything else. Then what's the real issue here? What's really bothering you? I looked down at my hands, twisted my wedding ring around my finger. The ring Thomas had put there 31 years ago. He didn't tell me. He kept it secret. He took away my choice to forgive him. He decided for me that I was better off not knowing. And that feels like he didn't trust me. Like he didn't think I could handle the truth. Or worse, like he was protecting himself instead of protecting us. Dr. Roberts nodded. That makes sense. The secret feels like a boat. Betrayal of trust. Even more than the kiss itself. Yes, exactly. If he'd told me, we could have worked through it together. But instead, he carried this alone for 31 years. And I never knew. Never had the chance to forgive him. Never had the chance to decide if this was something I could move past. He made that choice for me. Why do you think he kept the letter? If he wanted to forget about it, why not throw it away? I don't know. That's what's driving me crazy. Why keep it? Why put it in that specific jacket? The jacket from our first date? What do you think it means? I don't know. Part of me thinks he kept it as a reminder, like Amy said. A reminder of how much he loved me, how he chose me. But another part of me thinks maybe he kept it because he had regrets. Because he wondered, what if? Because Rebecca mattered to him in a way I never knew about. Both could be true. Or neither. But Claire, here's something to consider. You're never going to know for certain why he kept that letter. Thomas is gone. He can't tell you. So you have 2 choices. You can let this uncertainty destroy your memories of him. Let it poison everything you built together. Or you can choose to believe something that allows you to heal while still honoring your feelings. Rebecca said the same thing. Choose what to believe. Do you think that's dishonest? Choosing a narrative? I don't know. Maybe. How can I just decide what's true? You're not deciding what's true. You're deciding what meaning to assign to an ambiguous situation. Thomas kept a letter. That's a fact. But why he kept it, what it meant to him, whether it represented regret or gratitude or guilt or just forgetfulness, that's interpretation. And when the only person who knows for sure is dead, you get to choose which interpretation serves you best. I sat with that for a moment. What if I choose wrong? There is no wrong. There's only what helps you move forward and what keeps you. Over the next few months, I worked through my feelings in therapy, talked about Thomas, about our marriage, about the good times and the hard times and everything in between, about the man I'd loved and the man I'd discovered through that letter, about forgiveness and betrayal and the complicated reality that people are never just one thing. Dr. Roberts helped me see that Thomas had been human, flawed, imperfect. He'd made a mistake and then made another mistake by keeping it secret. But those mistakes didn't erase 31 years of love and partnership and building a life together. They didn't erase the way he'd held my hand through my mother's funeral, or stayed up all night with me when Amy was sick as a baby, or surprised me with flowers every anniversary, or looked at me like I was the most beautiful woman in the world, even when I was 50 years old with gray hair and wrinkles. The letter didn't erase any of that. It just complicated it, made it messier, more real, maybe. I started talking to Amy more about her memories of Thomas, about what she'd observed growing up, and she told me stories I'd forgotten or never known. About how Thomas would brag about me at her soccer games, How he'd call me from business trips just to hear my voice. How he'd tell anyone who would listen that marrying me was the best decision he ever made. How he'd look at our wedding photo on his desk at work and smile. "Mom," Amy said one day over coffee, "I've been thinking about this a lot. And I think maybe Dad kept that letter because it represented the moment he became absolutely certain about you. Like, maybe before San Francisco, he loved you and wanted to marry you. But after Rebecca's confession and that kiss and having to make a real choice, maybe that's when he became completely, totally sure. And the letter was a reminder of that certainty. Not a reminder of what he gave up, but a reminder of what he chose." "You really think so?" "I don't know. But it makes sense, doesn't it? He put it in the jacket from your first date. That seems symbolic, like bookending the story. First date to the moment he knew for sure. And then he kept that jacket forever. Wore it all the time. It was his favorite. Or maybe I'm reading too much into it. Maybe. But Mom, you loved him. He loved you. You had a good marriage. I saw it. I lived it. Whatever happened in San Francisco 31 years ago, it didn't change that. It didn't change the life you built together. It didn't change that he was a good husband and a good father and a good man who made one mistake and then spent the rest of his life choosing you every single day." I started to cry again. But this time, it felt different. Not like grief or anger or betrayal. More like release. Like letting go of something heavy I'd been carrying. "I miss him," I said. "I miss him so much. And I'm so angry that he's not here to explain, to apologize, to let me forgive him. I'm angry that this letter is all I have. These words from Rebecca and my own interpretations and nothing from him. I know. I'm angry too. Angry at him for keeping secrets. Angry at the universe for taking him before we were ready. Angry that you have to deal with this alone. I keep thinking about what I would say to him if I could. If he were here right now, what would you say?" I'd say, "I wish you'd told me. I wish you'd trusted me enough to be honest. But I understand why you didn't. And I forgive you. I forgive you for the kiss and for the secret and for being human and imperfect and flawed. I forgive you because I loved you and you loved me, and that's what people who love each other do. They forgive." Amy reached across the table and took my hand. "Then say it out loud. Even though he can't hear you. Say it for yourself." So I did. Right there in the coffee shop, I closed my eyes and said it. Said all the things I needed to say. Forgave Thomas for his mistakes. Forgave myself for being angry. Forgave Rebecca for writing the letter in the first place. Let it all go. It didn't fix everything. I still had moments of doubt. Still wondered sometimes what really went through Thomas's mind when he kept that letter. Still felt a pang of hurt when I thought about him kissing Rebecca. But it got easier. The sharp edges of the pain started to dull. The obsessive need to know every detail started to fade. I made a decision about the letter. I didn't throw it away. But I didn't keep it in the jacket either. I put it in a box with other important documents. Thomas's will, our marriage certificate, birth certificates. Things that were significant, but not things I looked at every day. The letter was part of our story now. A complicated, messy part, but still a part. And it deserved to be preserved, even if it hurt. I kept the leather jacket, though. That was non-negotiable. I'd wear it sometimes when I missed Thomas especially hard. It still smelled like him. Still felt like a connection to the man I'd loved. And I chose to believe Amy's interpretation, that the jacket represented our love story. First date to forever. And the letter was just a footnote. A moment that tested his commitment and proved how much he loved me. I chose to believe that because it helped me heal. 6 months after finding the letter, I went back to Rebecca. Not to talk about Thomas this time, but just to talk. We'd emailed a few times. Careful, polite messages. And then one day I suggested we meet. I happened to be in California visiting a college friend. It seemed like a sign. We met at a cafe in Palo Alto. I recognized her immediately from her photo. She looked older in person, tired, but kind. She smiled when she saw me, a sad, understanding smile. "Claire, it's good to meet you. Finally, after all these years. You too." We sat down, ordered coffee, made small talk for a few minutes. Then Rebecca said, "How are you, really?" "I'm okay, better than I was. Still grieving. Still figuring out how to exist without him. But okay." "And the letter? Have you found peace with it?" "I think so. Or I'm getting there. I've chosen to believe that Thomas kept it as a reminder of how much he loved me. That the kiss was a mistake and the secret was misguided, but neither of them changed the reality of our marriage. That's good. That's healthy. I wanted to thank you for being honest with me, for telling me about the kiss even though you didn't have to, for helping me understand. I'm glad I could help. I've thought about that night so many times over the years, wondered if I should have done things differently, if I should have never told him how I felt. If I ruined something by speaking up, you didn't ruin anything. You were honest about your feelings. That's not a crime. Maybe, but I think about the alternative sometimes. What if I'd never said anything? Would Thomas have told you about seeing me? Would it have just been a nice dinner with an old friend? Would everything have been simpler? Maybe. Or maybe that kiss needed to happen. Maybe he needed to face that choice head on, to know beyond any doubt that he wanted me, that he was making the right decision by getting married. I like that interpretation. Me too. We talked for hours about our lives, our kids, our careers, our losses. She told me her husband had died too. 3 years ago. Cancer. She understood grief, understood the complexity of loving someone who was imperfect, who made mistakes, who kept secrets. "I thought I'd hate you," I admitted. "When I first found the letter, I thought you were the villain, the other woman. The one who tried to steal my husband. I was never trying to steal him. I just loved him. Couldn't help it. I know that now. And honestly, I get it. Thomas was easy to love. He had that way about him. That warmth, that genuine kindness. He did. I'm glad he found you. Glad he had the life he had. Even though it meant I couldn't be part of it. You were part of it, though. In a way, you pushed him to make a choice, to commit fully. Maybe our marriage was stronger because of what happened in San Francisco. Maybe he appreciated it more because he knew what he was choosing. Maybe. I hope so." Before we said goodbye, Rebecca gave me something. An envelope, sealed this time. "What's this?" "A letter. From me to Thomas. The one I wrote to him asking him to keep your letter secret. To protect you. I found it in my files when I was looking for something else. Thought you might want to read it, to see the full picture." I took the envelope, held it carefully. "Thank you. Take care of yourself, Claire. You're a strong woman. Stronger than you think." "You too, Rebecca." I didn't read the second letter until I got back to my hotel room. Sat on the bed and carefully opened the envelope. Inside was a single page, dated 2 days after the first letter. "Dear Thomas, I'm writing to take back everything I said in my previous letter. Please don't give Claire the letter I wrote for her. I was wrong to ask you to be honest about something that would only hurt her. What happened between us was a moment, a mistake, and she doesn't need to carry the weight of it. Please throw away both letters. Forget about our conversation. Marry Claire and be happy and build the beautiful life you've been planning. She's a good person. She deserves better than to start her marriage with doubts and suspicions and unnecessary pain. I'm sorry for putting you in this position. Sorry for confessing my feelings. Sorry for the kiss. Sorry for all of it. You were right to choose her. She's your person, and I'll move on. I'll find my own person. And someday, we'll both look back on this, and it will just be a strange, sad footnote in the story of our friendship. Take care, be happy, love Claire the way she deserves to be loved. Rebecca. I read it 3 times, then I folded it carefully and put it back. In the envelope. Put both letters in the box with the other one. The complete story, all the pieces, and I understood finally. Thomas had kept the first letter because Rebecca had asked him to throw it away. He'd kept it as evidence, as proof that he'd done the right thing, that he'd chosen loyalty over temptation, that he'd protected me from unnecessary pain. The letter wasn't a reminder of regret. It was a reminder of his choice, his commitment, his love. Or maybe it wasn't. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe Amy was wrong. Maybe Rebecca was wrong. Maybe Thomas kept it for reasons none of us could understand, reasons that died with him. But it didn't matter anymore, because I'd chosen my story. I'd chosen to believe that my husband loved me, that our marriage was real and good and worth remembering with joy instead of bitterness. That one mistake, one kiss, one secret didn't define 31 years of partnership and love. I'd chosen to forgive him, to forgive Rebecca, to forgive myself, for all the anger and doubt and pain. I'd chosen to heal. A year after finding the letter, I was finally ready to finish sorting through Thomas's things. I'd been putting it off. But Amy was right. It was time to donate the clothes, pack up the books, make space for the life I was building without him. I pulled out the leather jacket one last time, held it to my face. But it didn't smell like him anymore. Just like old leather and dust, the Thomasness of it had faded. And that was okay. That was part of moving forward. I decided to keep it anyway. Not in the closet, gathering dust, but displayed, hung on a hook in my study, a reminder of first dates and difficult choices and complicated love. A reminder that people are imperfect and marriage is messy, and sometimes the greatest love stories include chapters that hurt. I put both of Rebecca's letters in the inside pocket, right where I'd found the first one, sealed the pocket with a few careful stitches, and hung the jacket on the wall. "Thank you," I whispered to the empty room, "to Thomas's ghost, to the memory of our life together. Thank you for choosing me. Thank you for 31 years. Thank you for being human and flawed and real. Thank you for loving me as best as you could. It was enough. You were enough, and I meant it. Every word. The grief didn't disappear. I still missed him, still cried sometimes, still reached for him in bed and felt the crushing disappointment when I remembered he wasn't there. But the anger was gone. The sense of betrayal had faded. The letter had stopped being a weapon and had become just another part of our story. The complicated, messy, beautiful story of Claire and Thomas. A story that included mistakes and secrets and 3-second kisses and hidden letters and 31 years of choosing each other. A story that ended too soon but had been worth every moment. Even the painful ones. Especially the painful ones. Because those were the moments that proved our love was real. That it could withstand doubt and hurt and uncertainty. That it was stronger than secrets, bigger than mistakes, more enduring than the questions we'd never answer. I'd found a letter in my late husband's jacket, and it had changed everything I thought I knew. But in the end, it had also proven what I'd always known, that Thomas loved me, that I loved him, and that some truths are worth believing in, even when you can't prove them, especially then. Subscribe for more real stories like this.